Welcome to Season 4 of Might in Motion, the podcast that champions motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. I'm Marianna Kinnee, your host, bringing you conversations with inspiring leaders and innovators who challenge the status quo and push boundaries in their careers and lives. Whether you're here to grow, lead, or ignite your own journey, we're here to keep you moving forward. Let's dive in. Gabby Coe is a fellow at Northrop Grumman and a STEM advocate. She specializes in systems and software engineering and has worked many complex projects and held various systems engineering leadership positions supporting the governments of the United States, United Kingdom, and Colombia. Gabby holds an MS in systems engineering from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University and a BS in industrial engineering from the University of Miami. Gabby is an INCOSE expert system engineering professional. She co-presented at the INCOSE SEHBV 4.0 tutorial, which is awarded the INCOSE 2020 Product of the Year. She has authored a chapter of knowledge sharing as a systems engineering. She co-authored a chapter on knowledge sharing as a systems engineering process, stories and methods from industry experts for the Springer Women in Engineering and Science book. Emerging Trends in Systems Engineering Leadership, Practical Research from Women Leaders. Gabby created and hosts Keys to the Future podcast and served in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Gabby, I am so excited to welcome you to Might in Motion.
Thank you, Marianna. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too, because we have some similar backgrounds, which I always find very interesting as a female engineer and being in the tech space, now being able to work with so many different companies. I always love hearing from other female engineers and really wanting to know what actually drew you to engineering. What was that first thing that made you say, that's what I want to do? And what's actually kept you there?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I would tell you that I did not know early on what I was going to do, right? With just like a lot of students, early on, you don't know what you want to do. But I went to my counselor and, in the senior year of high school, I guess that was, and you talk to your counselor and they try to find out what makes you tick, and you just really don't know. And so she suggested taking one aptitude test, and I have always been good in math. And so, I guess math and the aptitude test I did well in it. And she said, why don't you look into engineering? But I also had thought about being a lawyer before that. And I tell you, being a lawyer was not a thing that I that I really, I guess, could do. I didn't see myself doing, because just the mere fact of having to defend somebody in front of anyone else, right? It's really scary. It was really scary for me at the time. So her idea of looking into engineering was like, I think I can do that. And then industrial engineering more specifically, because I've always been a process person. How do we get from here to there, and the steps to go, to basically navigate a way around your a task, or how are you going to do something, or what's the best way to do something. And so that's what kind of drew me into engineering at first, and then specifically into industrial engineering. And then later on, as I went to get a master's degree, systems engineering kind of came into focus, because I've always been kind of like a broad perspective type of thinker. And so systems engineering is kind of like solving that puzzle, right? Putting all the different pieces together. How do they go together? And what are you going to have at the end? Like in a puzzle, when you're making a puzzle, you're kind of you have a picture somewhat of what the final picture should look like. And so, in the same manner in systems engineering, we kind of have an idea of how we should solve the problem for the customer, and what pieces we need to bring together, what disciplines, what what other people that need to come together. And so that whole process, if you will, of bringing the people together, the components together, the different disciplines to solve that problem has always fascinated me over the years.
Yeah, were you always like a very organized or structured person?
My family will tell you yes to the, to the nth degree. But hey, it's worked for me, and to this day, even when we go on vacation, I just have to organize what we're doing when, and what things I need to do before the trip, after the trip, and all of those things. But to me, it's just a matter of how I operate, how I keep myself organized, even in my daily runs. I'm a runner, so I like to go out for a run in the morning. During that run, I'm not just running, I'm thinking about my day, what things I have on the docket, right? And what meetings are coming up, how, even practicing for some presentations, if that's what's part of my day, just thinking about how I'm going to deliver that presentation, or key points that I want to make sure that I don't forget. So I think it helps me. It works for me. It has worked for me, and so I tell people, I advise to people, hey, get organized.
Yeah, I asked that because growing up, I was that. I mean, I still am, but I remember when I went off to college, I could call my mom and I could say, "Hey, I need you to go to this drawer. It's the middle pile of shirts. It's the third shirt down." Like and there was probably an issue there that I was that kind of OCD, but it lends itself to engineering, and I think it really lends itself to industrial engineering specifically. So that whole passion of solving problems and with a process, I love that.
Right. Yes.
Love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you've had a really interesting career, and I'd love to know a little bit more about like how working across different cultures. We talked in your intro about supporting the United States, the United Kingdom, and Colombia with complex engineering efforts. There has to be unique challenges culturally in being in these very different environments. And how were you able to navigate it? And maybe how could a new engineer follow suit and navigate it successfully?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I really started my career with the Corps of Engineers, so in the military, right? So that kind of gives you that kind of culture, an idea of that culture, very structured. And I did well there because of that structure. It just prepared you for, you know, uh, moving along the mission that you had, right? And you had to plan, you had to execute, and then have like a retrospective of what went well, what we could improve upon. So that's kind of like, really, if you think about the engineering process, right? You're always looking at a systematic way of looking at the problem, what solutions, potential solutions you can bring in, how you're going to put them together, right? And then after you execute that solution, you do a retrospective. What went wrong? How can we improve on this part that went wrong, or what could have gone better? So I think that's part of how I operate and how I think as well. But at the very core of when you're trying to solve problems for your customer, I think the very core thing that needs to happen across all the cultures is just really take the time to sit with the customer and listen. Just even if they are ranting, right? Listen to the problem that they're having and how they're describing it. What is it that when they describe is like they hit that hot button, that then you have to pay attention to that particular problem, that then okay, you gotta pick that up as a real problem, so that you could maybe have a feature that will address that particular thing that they're so adamant about. But across all of the cultures, I think the best advice that I can give to engineers in general, not just up and coming engineers or just starting out, is communication. Communication is key. to communication, and part of the communication is listening, right? So you listen and you communicate. You need to learn to communicate effectively your solutions, be able to explain your solutions, not in a technical way, but in a way that the end user or your customer will understand them and understand the impact that your solution will have to their problem, right? So I think those would be my top two recommendations for engineers. Be very aware of your soft skills. Communication and listening are part of those soft skills.
I love that. Those are two powerful advice of listening and then being able to communicate back a solution that really shows that you heard the pain points. And we're going to pivot here. I think maybe this is it's a good moment to pivot, because you talk about listening, you talk about communication. You've been able to take that, and now you're hosting your own podcast, Keys to the Future, highlighting STEM careers and innovation. What inspired you to launch your show, and how has it shaped your mission?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. Thank you for asking, because so my podcast is Keys to the Future, and it really is stemmed out of a personal situation where I had a personal loss. And that was because like my brother to me was the ultimate mentor, and he and I talked about everything and nothing. And every conversation we had, I came out feeling like, okay, I have some ideas of what I can go and tackle, whatever it was that I was sharing with him, or just a topic that he said something, I should go and look it up. When I lost my brother, God, that void, it was a huge void. It still is. And I thought to myself, wow, maybe a way to honor our relationship is to share my knowledge, but not just my knowledge, other STEM leaders' knowledge, how we have navigated our career so far, so that we can help others kind of learn from our lessons learned. So they don't have to, reinvent the wheel, right? Every time you approach a problem, maybe learn how we addressed it. Not necessarily that they will address it in the same way, but at least, apply some of that knowledge and to have those that information to make some informed decisions about how to navigate your STEM career. And so that has been that was the genesis of the podcast. And then the pandemic came about, and I had a lot of time in my hands, just like everyone else, and I just started to put a plan together, and it just flourished from there. And to be honest with you, if you had asked me probably 2 years before that time if that I would be doing this, or hey, can you do this podcast, I would have probably said no, because I've always been or consider myself to be an introvert. And so, just reserved, and I wouldn't have put myself out there, if you will. So, but I think, coming out of your comfort zone sometimes, not sometimes, coming out of your comfort zone, it's proven that, there's room for growth, that you grow in so many ways. And for me personally, I have grown so much in the grieving process, that it has helped me come out of the other side, always honoring my brother. But even though he's not here, I feel content that, what I'm doing hopefully will inspire somebody. Go have a conversation with somebody that then could lead them to some resources, that then could lead them to finding out, hey, I can be an engineer, or yes, I can do this job. And yeah, so kind of going on and on, but yes, that's kind of how I got started with my podcast.
That's awesome. I mean, it's a great tribute. And then you're also leaving an evergreen legacy, right? Of
Thank
those
you.
The new conversations that you're having, which are reflective of the conversations you had before with him. I think that's just lovely.
Thank you.
I'd love to know, as you look back on your journey so far, and maybe this is something that you and your brother discussed at some point, but what's a principle or a mindset that helped you stay grounded in your career?
Well, I would say always know where you come from, but don't let that hold you back. Coming from very humble beginnings, you would have expected probably that I wouldn't have, achieved an education or achieved the level where I'm at now, which I'm, grateful for. And in some cases, I've had, imposter syndrome. Am I
Mhm.
supposed to be here? Can I do this? And what I would say is, and also what I think my brother would say is, don't let um, where you came from really identify you for life, right? Just take those lessons learned, take the humility, be humble enough to always remember where you came from, but not hold you back because life is a journey. And if you have a growth mindset, the sky is really the limit. um, so that's what I would say. Just whatever you set your mind to, give it a try. Surround yourself with a community that will help you get there, right? And really hold you accountable for getting there, but also celebrate your victories and be your safety net as you face some challenges.
Love that. A lot of the people who tune into this podcast are coming from corporate America. They're in that, maybe they're new managers, or maybe now they are managers of managers. So there's that, they're in that middle part of their career. And sometimes that's a hard place to be, right? And you're still learning. Was there a leadership lesson that maybe you can share with those young leaders that you learned while managing these large scale technical projects that you kind of wish more early career engineers understood?
Yeah, I think, I'm going to go back to listening, right? Because as a leader, you also have to listen. Not you, the leader doesn't always, have the answer, right?
Mhm.
The leader has to listen to what is going on in terms of the problem that we're trying to solve, in terms of maybe some discussions that are being had that are not going well. Listen to both sides, if you will, if there is discourse. But listening is like so fundamental. Listening and then empathy. You
Mhm.
have to walk a mile in people's shoes, whether you're at work or whether you're, in your personal life. Um, have that empathy that really will go a long way, especially like if you're, trying to effect change, right? Change is so difficult for all of us. But if you take the time to listen to people's concerns about why are we changing, and then having the empathy to say, hey, yeah, we need to change, but this is why we're changing. And
Mhm.
also having the empathy to say what you have done to date matters, but in order for us to get to the next level, or to the next thing, or improve our processes or our organization, we have to take these additional steps and come be part of it. How do you
Mhm.
think we can solve this problem together, right? So I think listening and empathy are two things that we're not very good at, I think, as engineers, because, and I say that because I'm an engineer, but also because we are thinking ahead of how we can solve that problem that we're hearing or listening to, but sometimes we are way ahead of ourselves. But take a step back, take it all in, and then systematically take that engineering process, right? Systematically analyze and then come up with the solutions. The loudest voice is not the correct voice most of the time. Is what I've learned.
So true. Oh, that hit close to home. um, like, and is that how you maintain momentum by kind of creating that process, and then you're kind of building on it, or do you have other tricks that you use to maintain momentum where sometimes people get stuck, right? They might get stuck in a project, and then they get stuck in their career.
Mhm. Well, so in terms of gaining momentum, right? You have to like really explain the why, so people know
Mhm.
why we're doing it. Then maybe you need to make people more aware of what's going on, or that particular topic that you're trying to cover with them, or that particular solution that you think may be part of the overall solution. Um, and then maybe teach them, right? Educate them on the specific topic, on the on the path forward, on, and then bring them along. Okay, now
Mhm.
that you understand, have a better understanding of why we need to go to where we need to go, and how do you think that we can uh, improve, or how we do you think we can get from A to B? Then that gives them some ownership of that particular process, right? Of solving the problem, improving themselves, improving their team, making sure that there's no animosity between people, right? Because maybe teams are one against the other or whatever, or people. So I think if you go kind of like through that process of explaining why we need to get here, and then bringing the people in to say, how do you think we should
Mm.
go there, and so that gives them that ownership. And then they either like, wow, you're right, or yeah, I think that we can do it this way or that way or whatever, and so you bring them along.
I love that. I love that. And I'm going to share on my screen here, because I think people who are listening they're probably excited about what you're sharing, and hopefully it won't take us off the screen. So give me just a second here. We talk a lot about taking action, right? And I think some of the big one is like go tune into your podcast, right? Keys to the Future podcast. Go check it out. Great opportunity, I think, to continue to learn from Gabby. But you're also pretty active on LinkedIn. Is that the best place for people to go if they want to connect with you, maybe learn more about you, or perhaps connect with you on their questions that they may have about the STEM industry, or just engineering and how you've navigated it?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach me via LinkedIn. Also, my website that is also listed over here in the middle. And there's also a direct email address that I receive there's a contact me link within that page that you can reach me as well. And I always welcome people that want to chat about, different things, STEM. I'm a big advocate in you know, um, helping underrepresented communities to, hey, STEM is hard, but you can do it. So,
And it's
reach
gratifying.
out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Reach
I
out
love
to
it.
anyone, like to you, Mariana, to anyone that is a STEM advocate. We love to help. We've been there. We can share our lessons learned. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And just by learning about our journeys, you can make informed decisions about your own journey.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. And all these links that I just showed will be in the show notes. But it's just a great, Gabby's just a great resource. And I mean, this rings true to me from my background. And I know it's going to ring true to a lot of folks that are either currently in engineering, or maybe they're thinking about a career in STEM, and how it's, it is an environment, I think, where like what your background is doesn't always matter, and you're able to come to the table, because data speaks a lot louder than emotion, right? And I always tell my team, like, how do we make the data tell a story instead of making decisions just because we feel a certain way, right? And so that's what's, I think,
Absolutely.
a beautiful thing about STEM. You know, everybody knows I like to have my handy pen and I scribble a lot of notes while I'm talking to my guests. And I want to share a few of the highlights that I wrote down that really resonated. I think one is you talked about how you were always kind of this process person, and talking to your counselor, your high school counselor, going into your careers, that sort of thing, and it really shined that engineering could be a really good path, especially with like your love of math and science as well, and how going into a STEM career allowed you to solve really big puzzles, right? And
Right.
there was kind of this joy in looking at overall processes that when you join the Corps of Engineers, you really got to see big missions, right? And like, how do you continue to learn through those missions and create successful outcomes? You talked about how, two big takeaways, especially for young leaders, is take the time, number one, to sit with your customer and listen. Like, listen to how they describe their pain points, listen to what they think their issues are. And then the second is communication the other way of being able to explain what your solution is in a way that shows how you can help solve the problems and the pain that they were explaining to you. It really is this two-way conversation, but it all starts at the beginning with opening up your ears, closing your mouth, and really being able to tune into what they're saying. And that also is a great thing for, early career, mid-career individuals can take that same practice of listening and communicating, but also layering on top of that a sense of empathy with your team, with others around you, especially when you're talking about change, and being able to resonate back the why for change, but welcome others and make sure that you're kind of bringing them along, right? And you kind of talked about how this there might be something that had been done for a long time, but there's a pivot, there's a reason, that ultimate why, and you want them to come along with you, with the team, on whatever that change journey is. And I think kind of to wrap up my notes, you talked a lot as well about your history, your family history, what inspired you to create your podcast, what, how it kind of helped develop you, but you don't want to let where you came from define your whole life. And so you've used STEM and the podcast as an opportunity to reinvent yourself and be able to have that growth mindset, which is just awesome. I know that people who are interested in getting to know you more are going to reach out via LinkedIn, go to her website, make sure you connect with Gabby, because I think that this is just she's just another great resource on like how to lean in to your leadership, how to lean in a STEM environment and continue to grow. Gabby, thank you so much for sharing all these wonderful tidbits and your story with the Might in Motion community.
Thank you so much, Marianna, for having me. It was a lovely afternoon.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Might in Motion. Remember, every step forward counts, and the power to create momentum starts with you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It makes a huge difference. Until next time, stay inspired, stay mindful, and keep moving with might.